Something is moving when no one is looking. Something is shifting while the world sleeps. Something holy is separating what once seemed the same. Right now, in this very hour, an invisible line is being drawn across hearts, homes, churches, and nations. To the eyes, everything appears normal. Streets are busy. Songs are still sung. Prayers still rise from many lips. Yet beneath the surface, beneath the noise and the light, a great quiet work is unfolding. It is not announced with thunder. It is not broadcast on screens. It is sensed only by those whose spirit has not grown dull. A quiet division, a silent sorting, a moment where light and darkness no longer blend as easily as before. Many feel it as an unease they cannot name, a restlessness they cannot explain, a hunger that ordinary answers can no longer satisfy. Others feel nothing at all, and that, perhaps, is the most dangerous sign. There is a silence spreading that is unlike any the world has known. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of examination. Not the rest of God after creation, but the stillness before a door is shut. It moves through congregations where words are many, but oil is scarce. It moves through families where the name of God is spoken, but his presence is no longer sought. It moves through individual souls who once burned with a living flame and now settle for the warmth of memory. Some hear this silence and tremble. Others grow comfortable within it. The same silence that awakens one heart will slowly numb another, and so the separation deepens, quietly, relentlessly, without spectacle. There are two kinds of silence in the soul. One draws you closer to heaven. The other slowly convinces you that you are already close enough. In this hour, many mistake the second for the first. They confuse stillness with intimacy. They confuse absence of trouble with approval. They confuse the echo of past encounters with a present walk. Lamps still exist. Their shapes are the same. Their holders are steady. Yet inside, some burn with living fire, and others carry only the smell of what once burned. To the untrained eye, they look identical, but heaven already knows the difference. This is how the invisible phenomenon works. It does not tear loudly, it drifts. It does not confront at once, it slowly shifts affections. The heart grows occupied with survival, with comfort, with routine, with being fine. The cry for more fades into a quiet agreement with less. Prayer becomes shorter, watching becomes rarer. The sense of urgency dulls, and the soul convinces itself that tomorrow will always look like today. Yet all along, the currents beneath the surface grow stronger. The tide is already moving out, and only those paying attention notice that the water is no longer where it once was. Across the earth, a quiet contrast is forming. Some are being stripped, refined, unsettled, pressed into deeper surrender. Others are being soothed, entertained, reassured into a painless sleep. One group feels the weight of heaven growing heavier upon their conscience. Another feels the weight of heaven growing strangely light. This is not because God has changed. It is because hearts are responding differently to the same light. The same sun that softens wax hardens clay. The same call that awakens one soul irritates another. And so the unseen division advances, not by force, but by response. Many think separation will announce itself with chaos alone, but before the storm, there is always a quiet pressure in the air. Before judgment, there is always mercy knocking. Before the door closes, there is always a season when the sound of knocking grows more urgent to those who are awake and more irritating to those who sleep. In this season, heaven is not shouting. Heaven is watching, weighing, measuring oil in hidden vessels, testing whether faith still breathes when applause is gone and comfort is removed. Some call this hour ordinary, some call it progress, some call it instability. But in the realm that cannot be seen, it is an hour of alignment, an hour where what is genuine is being drawn upward, and what is artificial is being lulled downward. An hour where roots are being exposed. An hour where names in heaven are not being checked against activity, but against intimacy. against obedience in secret, against hunger when no one is watching. This is why the silence feels heavy to those who are awake. It is not empty. It is filled with searching eyes, with measured breaths, with doors that will not remain open forever. The world keeps laughing. Distraction grows louder, yet the Spirit whispers deeper. The invitation is becoming narrower, not because God has grown distant, but because hearts have become divided in what they truly want. Some still want Him above all. Others want Him only when He does not disturb their comfort. This is not coincidence. It is not emotional imagination. It is not a passing mood of the age. This is prophecy unfolding without spectacle, a separation that does not need banners, a call that does not need headlines, a moment when heaven moves quietly so that only those who truly love the sound of His voice will respond. And the question that now hangs over every soul is not what they say with their lips, but what they cling to when the silence falls. What is happening now will not remain invisible forever. What is now sensed only in the Spirit will soon be made manifest. The quiet line being drawn will soon be a visible boundary, and those who learn to listen in the silence will recognize the moment. Those who grew comfortable within it will be caught unprepared. This is the hour of hidden separation. And what comes next will reveal why discernment was mercy all along. The quiet division continues, unseen by many, yet deeply felt by those who remain awake. What was once only a strange weight in the air now settles into the soul like a question that refuses to be ignored. The invisible sorting does not pause. It advances even while people speak of peace, routine, and normal days. And into this silence, a voice once spoken on dusty roads still echoes with unsettling clarity. There was a time when He looked into the eyes of ordinary people and warned them with unusual gravity. His words were not sugar-coated. They were gentle, yet heavy with eternity. He spoke of watchfulness while the world would be busy with ordinary life. He spoke of many who would claim His name, yet live without oil in their lamps. He spoke of hearts that would grow distracted, weighed down by the cares of living, unaware that a decisive hour was approaching. In every warning there was mercy. In every admonition there was love, but also urgency, an urgency that was not meant to create panic but awakening. Today those same warnings are no longer distant teachings. They are mirrors. Houses of worship are full, yet many hearts are strangely hollow. Songs rise, yet few tremble. Words about faith are spoken freely, yet the quiet brokenness that once marked true devotion is fading. Many say they are rich in knowledge, strong in doctrine, secure in belonging. But heaven searches for something deeper than language. It searches for burning oil. It searches for living watchfulness. It searches for a love that still waits at the door with expectation. He once described a people who believed they were ready simply because they belonged to the group. They carried lamps, they had a shared identity, they moved in the same direction. Yet when the crucial moment arrived, half of them discovered too late that their vessels were empty. They had light in appearance, but no reserve in secret. They had form without flame. And when the cry finally rang out, there was no time left to borrow what should have been cultivated in hidden places. This is being fulfilled in quiet ways all around us. Many build their confidence on what they assume rather than on what they nurture. They say, "I know Him." They say, "I am fine." They say, "I have always believed." Yet their prayer life is thin, their hunger is weak, their repentance is rare. They replace daily surrender with past experiences. They replace a living walk with religious memory. And when the Spirit gently stirs their conscience, they silence Him with activity, noise, or comfort. He also warned of a generation that would be busy with buying, building, celebrating, and planning, unaware that their ordinary routines were slowly deafening them to the sound of heaven. Not because these things were evil in themselves, but because they grew louder than devotion. The heart became occupied, the eyes became distracted, The soul postponed eternity for tomorrow, and when tomorrow finally arrived, it arrived as a closed door. This is why the present hour feels so strange to those who can still feel. The warning is not coming through disaster yet. It is coming through contrast, through the unsettling realization that we can be surrounded by spiritual language and still be far from spiritual life. Through the fear that one can be near holy things and still miss the Holy One. Through the sobering truth that it is possible to mistake familiarity with God for intimacy with God. The most dangerous place for the human heart has always been false security. When a person is openly broken, they often cry out. When a person is openly lost, they may still search. But when a person believes they are already safe, the door of their spirit quietly closes. And this is precisely what these ancient warnings were meant to prevent. They were not threats, they were divine kindness in advance. Now, those same words breathe again in this generation, not as distant prophecy, but as present reality. The contrast between crowded gatherings and empty inner rooms grows sharper. The difference between noise and nearness becomes more evident. And the quiet voice of the Spirit continues to whisper what the crowds often drown out. Do not sleep. Do not assume. Do not delay. Because this is the hour when comfort can deceive. This is the hour when certainty can be false. This is the hour when many will say peace while heaven is still calling for preparation. The alert has already been issued. Not with sirens, but with sacred unease. Not with terror, but with truth. And the question is no longer whether the warning has been given. The warning has already been spoken. The only question that remains is who is truly listening, and who has learned to ignore the silence that precedes a door that soon will move. This is the alert, and it is unfolding now. When the unseen warning has been heard and the soul begins to wake, something else quietly begins as well. The gentle hand of refinement, the loving fire that does not come to destroy, but to reveal. This is the stage many misunderstand. They think the tightening they feel means abandonment. They assume the loss of comfort means God has turned away, but the truth is far more tender and far more severe. What feels like stripping is often selection. What feels like isolation is often invitation. What feels like loss is often the removal of what would not survive the coming light. In this refining hour, what once supported you may quietly fall away. Familiar voices grow distant. Certain doors close without explanation. The soul that once leaned on many things now finds itself standing with fewer and fewer supports. The noise fades. The crowd thins. And in the quiet that follows, the true posture of the heart is exposed. Some grow bitter in this season, others grow pure. Some ask, why has this been taken from me? Others ask, what are you trying to shape within me? Not everything that leaves your life in this season is an enemy. Some things leave because they have finished their assignment. Some comforts are removed because they would have dulled your spirit in the days ahead. Some relationships grow quiet because they cannot travel the road of consecration with you. This is not punishment. This is preparation. Fire does not argue with the gold. It simply reveals what is real. Those whom heaven refines often feel misunderstood on earth. They carry a weight others cannot see. They weep without knowing exactly why. They feel the pull toward deeper surrender, even as the world urges them to relax, to settle, to stop taking things so seriously. There is a holy tension within them, a stretching between what was and what will be. They begin to sense that casual faith will not sustain them where they are being led. Long ago, there were those who felt this same pressure before the waters ever rose. One man was called to build when no one else saw the need. His obedience looked foolish to the casual observer. His hammer rang out day after day in a season where the sky still looked clear. Another man was urged to leave a city filled with comfort because unseen destruction was approaching. His path out was narrow. His choices were mocked. Yet those choices became the difference between life and irreversible loss. These stories are not ancient relics. They are living patterns. They repeat whenever heaven prepares to move. Refinement always feels like contradiction to the flesh. The heart longs for rest, but the spirit calls for readiness. The soul desires reassurance, but heaven offers only direction. The flesh seeks to be understood, but the spirit whispers that being faithful is enough. In this sacred press, motives are exposed, pride is challenged, self-reliance weakens, and what remains is either quiet trust or quiet resistance. Many resist this process because it feels too costly. They want the promises without the pruning. They desire the glory without the furnace. They ask for elevation, but avoid the valley where character is forged. Yet there is no crown without the cross-shaped path of surrender. There is no lasting light without first passing through hidden fire. This fire does not announce itself with visible flames. It often burns in sleepless nights, in unanswered prayers, in seasons where God feels both close and strangely silent. It burns when the excitement fades and only obedience remains. It burns when no one applauds your faithfulness. It burns when you must choose integrity, while compromise would be easier and more rewarding. And yet, within this fire is an aching tenderness. For the same God who refines also consoles. The same hand that removes also steadies. In the deepest moments of stripping, his presence becomes strangely more intimate, not louder, not dramatic, but unmistakably near, like a quiet assurance that you are not being abandoned, you are being claimed. To those who feel alone in this season, to those who feel misunderstood, to those who wonder why this path feels so narrow and so quiet, hear this truth gently. Isolation in God is often not rejection. It is selection. You are not being pushed away from life. You are being drawn into deeper life. The crowd cannot always travel where the consecrated must go. The refining wind is blowing even now. It shakes what can be shaken so that what cannot be shaken may remain. The fire is separating the fragile from the eternal. The silence is teaching the soul to listen again, and through it all, heaven watches how each heart responds. Some harden under pressure, others soften, some close inward, others open wider. This is the test beneath all tests, not of ability, not of knowledge, but of surrender. Will you cling to what is being taken, or will you trust the one who is taking it for a greater purpose? Will you resist the fire, or will you allow it to cleanse what cannot enter the next season as it is? The refining is not meant to make you small. It is meant to make you pure. It is not meant to leave you empty. It is meant to make room. It is not meant to break you. It is meant to prepare you. And those who endure this hidden work with humility will begin to feel a strange strengthening beneath the ache, a quiet courage rising beneath the tears. A steadiness that does not come from circumstance, but from surrender. For when the testing has done its work, what remains is not fragile faith, but refined faith. Not borrowed confidence, but anchored conviction. Not superficial devotion, but a love that has passed through fire and still burns. And it is this kind of heart that will recognize the final hour, not with fear, but with readiness. As refinement deepens, another force moves quietly alongside it. Not with open hostility, but with subtle comfort. Not with obvious lies, but with half-truths wrapped in spiritual language. This is the season of the gentle deception, the soft lullaby that does not sound dangerous, yet slowly carries the soul into sleep. It does not push people away from faith. It invites them to a version of faith that costs almost nothing and demands almost nothing in return. The great trap is rarely loud. It is almost always reasonable. It says, "You have done enough." It says you have grown enough. It says you do not need to be so intense anymore. It persuades the heart that vigilance is extremism, that brokenness is weakness, that holy fear is outdated. It replaces trembling with familiarity. It trades watchfulness for routine. It turns the narrow way into a wide space of spiritual convenience. Many fall into this snare not through rebellion, but through relaxation. The soul grows tired of tension. The mind grows weary of waiting. The flesh grows impatient with discipline, and slowly the heart begins to negotiate. Just a little less prayer, just a little more comfort, just a little less hunger, just a little more distraction. None of it seems dangerous in the moment, but together these small permissions weave a net. There were once 10 who all waited for the same moment, all carried lamps, all looked prepared, all expected the same arrival, but only half had guarded what could not be borrowed at the last hour. The others were not expelled. They were simply unready when readiness was suddenly required. Their tragedy was not ignorance, it was assumption. They assumed time would always remain. They assumed proximity meant preparedness. They assumed the door would wait until they were comfortable enough to approach it. Another once looked back at what was being left behind, not because she despised the command, but because her heart was still divided. Her body moved forward, but her affection lingered in what was passing away. In that single backward glance, an entire future was forfeited, not by open defiance, but by divided longing. This is how the final deception often works. It does not deny heaven. It simply makes earth too precious to release. There was also a community that believed itself rich, strong, and secure. From the outside, nothing seemed lacking. From heaven's view, everything essential was missing. They were not accused of immorality or rebellion. They were exposed for something far more subtle, self-sufficiency. The belief that they no longer needed desperate dependence, the belief that warmth without fire was enough, the belief that they could see clearly when blindness had quietly settled in. This is the danger of the present hour. The soul that believes it cannot be deceived is already standing at the edge of deception. The heart that no longer examines itself assumes a safety that heaven never promised. The greatest lie is not that God is absent. The greatest lie is that his nearness requires no response. Comfort becomes the most skillful weapon, not comfort from God, but comfort from familiarity. The familiar voice of sermons without surrender, the familiar songs without repentance, the familiar rhythms without reverence. These do not shock the conscience, they slowly numb it. And when the conscience sleeps, the soul becomes easy to guide without resistance. Distraction is another gentle chain, endless movement, endless information, endless noise. The heart rarely has time to be still long enough to sense what it is losing. Silence becomes uncomfortable, stillness feels strange, the inner room gathers dust, the secret place is postponed for later, and later becomes a habit that never arrives. The proof of deception is not often found in what people deny, but in what they no longer pursue. Hunger reveals truth. When longing fades, something sacred is being traded. When urgency dissolves, something eternal is being exchanged for something temporary. The enemy does not need to remove faith. He only needs to make it optional. This is the final test beneath all tests. Not whether one believes, but whether one remains awake. Not whether one belongs to a gathering, but whether one guards the inner flame. Not whether one once ran well, but whether one is still watching at the door. Examine the soul now, while the door is still open. Examine the posture now, while the call can still be heard without regret. The lullaby is sweet. The bed is warm, the night feels long, but the moment will come when the cry will shatter the quiet, and only those who resisted sleep will rise without terror. Do not measure your readiness by your activity, measure it by your intimacy. Do not measure your security by your past, measure it by your present hunger. Do not measure your peace by your comfort, measure it by your obedience in the dark. This is not a message of condemnation. It is an invitation to wake, to shake the soul before it is too late to feel the shaking, to open the eyes while the light still calls softly. The final deception is never announced as a lie. It is offered as rest. But this is not the hour to sleep. This is not the hour to assume. This is not the hour to drift. Wake now, before the sound that no one will be able to ignore. In an hour where everything pulls the soul towards sleep, true devotion must become intentional again. Not loud, not performative, but steady, quiet, daily. The kind of faith that is built when no one is watching and no one is applauding. Readiness in this season is not about dramatic gestures. It is about small obediences that gather into a life of oil. It is about returning to the secret place, not as a ritual, but as a refuge. About speaking less to crowds and more to God. About allowing the heart to be searched without immediately defending itself. There is a difference between religious motion and living fire. Many know how to move, but few know how to wait. Many know how to speak, but few know how to listen. Keeping oil in the lamp is not a checklist. It is a posture. A soul that returns again and again to humility. A spirit that confesses quickly rather than hiding silently. A life that values quiet communion more than visible influence. Watchfulness is not frantic. It is faithful. It is the calm alertness of one who knows the voice and does not wish to miss it. Some try to stay awake through intensity alone, but intensity fades. Only intimacy endures. The fire that lasts is fed in silence, in surrender, in daily turning of the heart back toward heaven. Fasting teaches the soul that it does not live by comfort alone. Prayer teaches the heart to breathe again. The word, read not as information, but as life, reshapes the inner world. Repentance keeps the channels clear so that grace does not pool only on the surface, but flows deep within. There was once a man who lived surrounded by noise, ambition, and constant demand. He knew about God, spoke about God, but rarely stayed with God. One quiet season stripped him of public affirmation. At first he felt lost. Then he learned to pray again without performance. Tears returned where speeches once stood. Months later, his voice was softer, but his spirit was stronger. He did not gain a larger platform. He gained a deeper anchor. There was also a woman who had built her confidence on being busy for God. Her hands were always moving, but her heart had grown tired. When her routines collapsed, she felt exposed and empty. In the silence, she discovered how little she had been resting in God Himself. Slowly, she learned to sit without proving anything. Her service did not vanish. It was purified. What once came from pressure began to flow from love again. And there was another who looked righteous to everyone, yet lived with a quiet compromise no one could see. The Spirit whispered gently again and again. At last, in a moment of trembling honesty, he confessed what had bound him in secret. The relief was not dramatic, it was cleansing, the kind of release that returns light to the eyes and peace to the chest. His life did not become easier, it became lighter. This is how readiness grows, not in noise, but in surrender. Not in avoiding the world, but in refusing to let the world reshape the heart. Not in proving devotion to others, but in yielding daily to God. The oil that sustains in the dark is gathered drop by drop in the hidden places of obedience. Do not wait for a perfect season to begin again. Begin in the quiet disorder of now. Begin with the smallest yes. Begin with the prayer spoken when words feel thin. Begin with the confession that feels costly. Begin with the decision to turn off the noise and sit with the uneasy silence until it becomes sacred again. The separation that is unfolding is not meant to terrify. It is meant to rescue. It reveals where the heart has been leaning so that it may lean again on what cannot be shaken. It shows the difference between attachment and surrender, between comfort and consecration, between surviving and being prepared. God does not seek perfection of performance. He seeks purity of posture. He does not demand flawless history. He invites present return, and in this invitation there is no condemnation, only calling. Not a threat, but a narrowing path that leads toward life. This hour asks a simple question that echoes in every soul. What are you truly living from? What are you truly leaning on? What are you quietly becoming while no one is looking? The answers to these questions are shaping your capacity for the moment that is coming. The separation ahead is not cruel. It is merciful. It is the kindness that refuses to allow mixture to continue forever. It is the love that will not let illusions stand unchallenged. And those who respond now, while the door is still open, will discover that what felt like discipline was actually preparation wrapped in grace. This is not a message of punishment. This is a message of mercy. This is not a sound of rejection. It is the sound of a door still open. The silence you hear is not absence, it is invitation. It is the last gentle space before the final movement. It is the pause in which heaven waits to see who will answer from love and not from fear. For the separation now unfolding is not a sentence for the lost. It is a rescue for the willing. It is the kindness of God refusing to leave his people asleep when the bridegroom is already approaching. The time is short. The signs are clear. The night is far spent. The morning is closer than it appears. Not everyone will recognize the moment. Not everyone will respond to the unease in their soul. Many will explain it away. Many will cover it with noise. Many will settle back into comfort and wait for a later warning that will never come. But those who love the truth more than ease will feel a quiet trembling inside. Not terror, not panic, a sacred knowing, a deep awareness that this hour matters. It is not punishment that is coming for those who are ready. It is fulfillment. It is not loss for those who have let go. It is gain. What feels like narrowing now will soon reveal itself as shelter. What feels like stripping now will reveal itself as freedom. What feels like discipline now will reveal itself as love that refused to leave you unfinished. The same God who warns also gathers. The same God who tests also strengthens. The same God who refines also heals. He has not called you into fear, he has called you into readiness. He has not drawn your attention to shake you with dread, but to steady you with truth. For the soul that walks awake does not stumble when the hour arrives. It rises. Stay awake, stay soft, stay listening. Let your heart remain light with repentance. Let your hands remain busy with obedience. Let your eyes remain lifted with expectation. Let your inner room remain warm with prayer. Do not grow numb to the sacred weight of this moment. Do not trade the nearness of God for the ease of distraction. Do not exchange eternal readiness for temporary relief. The call is not loud, it is clear. The door is not closed, it is near. The hour is not distant, it is approaching. And when the final sound breaks the quiet, when the cry cuts through the night, when what is now believed becomes what is finally seen, it will not be performance that carries you through. It will be the oil gathered in secret. It will be the posture shaped in silence. It will be the love that chose him when no one else was watching. You were not called to survive this hour. You were called to be ready for it. So remain awake. Remain pure. Remain ready. Not in dread, but in hope. Not in panic, but in faith. Not in noise, but in love. For the silence you feel is not empty. It is full of promise. And mercy is still speaking, even now.